On our 150th anniversary, our sesquicentennial, which is a really good word for you Scrabble players, in 2024. But we're really excited to have you guys come tonight. We have a few things coming up. Magda, when is our event with Brenda Vaccaro? That is
It's November 8th.
November 8th, and Brenda is here tonight. So please come back on November 8th. We're working on another few more events. Our Low Jinx is on October 27th. Come for that. That's our Halloween party. We'll have some cabaret singing on floor 2M. But tonight is, thanks to Magda, who is our indefatigable entertainment committee member, it's the beginning of our award winners series. And we could not begin with a more distinguished guest tonight. But the first person I want to bring up is our moderator for tonight. He's a professor of film at Brooklyn College. He's written numerous books about film and theater and show business. Please welcome Mr. Foster Hirsch.
Awesome.
Our next guest is someone who I haven't seen in a few years. Last time I saw him, we were having cocktails at the Algonquin Hotel. He's been involved with the Piccadilly Theater for 20 years?
25.
25, a quarter century. Please welcome Dan Weinberger. And our guest of honor with a 65-year career, a stage and screen, a multiple award winner. Please welcome Al Linden. Sticking around after the event, we're going to go down to floor 2M for dinner and cocktails. For those who don't remember, they'll be happy to take your credit cards. And Foster's also going to allow time for Q&A as well, too. Okay, so please have some good questions for him. But welcome, everybody.
Welcome. We're here tonight to talk about a play and production I had the pleasure of seeing about 2 weeks ago. A play with, to me, a wonderfully enticing title, Two Jews Talking. I love the title. I'd go to see anything with that title. We have the director who chose the material, I believe, Dan Wackerman, and the star of the show with timing you are born with, it cannot be taught, Mr. Howard. I want to ask you, Dan, we just talked briefly back there, but I really want to hear about it. It's the kind of show, two men on stage talking. You have two actors who have masterful timing. You have a beautifully written script. What the heck does the director do?
Not only that, they don't move. They don't move, they just sit and talk.
And yet the piece is clearly directed, though you wouldn't, it doesn't feel like it. Tell us your process, Dan.
It's all true. I mean, Hal and Bernie Capel come out, sit down, and talk. And that's it in the way of blocking. So he's easy enough. But there are still substantial characters here, characters that they're playing, characters that need to be developed and explored. Now, in terms of the timing you talk about, that's something that can't be directed. I mean, directors can nudge, faster, slower, but the real heart of comic timing is not something that can be directed or taught. Some amazing actors just have it in their bones. And here's one, Bernie Capel is another, and to watch them trade insults and do what they do for 75 minutes in this play, it's really been a wonder for me to see it in person.
Did you explore character and script with the actors, is that right?
You hold it, Hal. I can project. What's the question?
You explored character and background with the actors.
Sure we did.
That was your
We
contribution.
approached this
Yes.
as if we're doing a serious play. Seriously. Every moment was investigated, where it came from, where it went to, so that the characters were developed, the relationship was developed, and then the timing was added to make the comedy work.
That came third, the timing?
In a sense, yes.
In a sense, last.
Yes.
In a sense, last.
Well, it deepens, it grows, it becomes more subtle, it becomes more faceted. I mean, that's one of the things I've noticed over the last 2 months of watching this show, is how Hal and Bernie developed that timing. And really, sometimes it's just a matter of a second. And you wouldn't believe the difference that makes. It's quite remarkable.
Does it change performance to performance in subtle ways?
Well, in a sense, every performance is different, and anything can affect it. Audience can affect it, your blood pressure can affect it. So in that sense, yes, it changes, but we know when we start on a beat how to, or we've discovered, let's put it that way, what works best.
But it doesn't feel mechanical.
And that's because of the work we did in the beginning. The question was to make it organic and not mechanical.
Because you know who you're playing.
Because you know who you're playing and you know why you know. All the Stanislavski answers are there, so you can now play George Abbott, you know.
So, but you're doing George Abbott, but it has the subtext. I have to tell you, the night I saw the audience, full house, laughing. By the end, you're very moved, and the elderly gentleman seated next to me was in tears at the end of the show, and he was really sobbing.
Yes,
So I
we
said,
were trying to make him laugh. That was
I said, sir, may I help you up the stairs? Because I thought he was so overcome that I thought he was an elderly gentleman, and I thought he might need some assistance. But you're very skillful, and your sneakers, you sneak, because it catches up with us. We don't expect it, and by the end, you're really moved.
I have to credit Ed Weinberger for that. Ed created a relationship between two people that's comedic, and yet we don't realize that it's also human and quite touching, and their backstories coincide at the end to make the moment.
And I have to say, was it a director's choice or your choice when you put your arm around your co-player?
No, that was Ed, wasn't it?
I thought it was you.
No, it was Ed. Remember, I was fighting it. In the beginning because of the-
Yeah, oh, yes.
Yes.
But I'm giving it away, but that is incredibly moving.
That was Ed. Ed was adamant. Ed was adamant that I had to find a way to get to the point to put my arm around him.
Now, the writer of the show, Ed Weinberger, I gather is primarily a TV writer. And
I spoke to Ed today. Interestingly enough, he said that his ambition as a young man was to be a playwright. And he found his way toward being a playwright by being first a comedy writer. He wrote jokes for people, and then for being a pretty elite television writer. He wrote for Taxi and he wrote for Mary Tyler Moore, famously. And stuff that's, a lot of the really memorable episodes of those shows was Ed Weinberger. This is his, he said he was quite kind of touched that he got to.
I have to tell my Ed Weinberger story. So this is a man with 9 Emmy Awards. He helped create the Mary Tyler Moore Show, as Hal says, the Taxi, the Cosby Show. I mean, he has an illustrious career as a TV writer. But he began with the desire to be a playwright and be taken seriously as a playwright. So when he flew to New York for this production, he checked into the Algonquin Hotel, which I thought was appropriate. And he was in the lobby of the Algonquin the day the New Yorker Review appeared. And he picked up a copy of the magazine and he said, He sobbed out loud. He was so thrilled with the review. So dreams come true.
But writing for television is not the same thing as writing a play.
Not at all.
Well, it's a different version of it, let's put it
Well,
that way. You have to have characters, you have to have backgrounds, you have to have through lines, you have to have spines, you have to have actions and objectives. It's still human beings interacting.
But it is, you could tell that it's written by somebody who has a lot of experience with one-liners.
Oh.
Because there are great
Oh, boy.
one-liners, but the one-liners add to the character. They aren't just jokes that end in themselves. It's related to character and situation, but there are one-liners. Can you share with us the opening line of the play? Or maybe not.
I don't.
Okay, keep it a secret.
I know, I remember the line, I don't think it represents
Okay.
the play.
But I thought, oh, this is clever. This
Well-
is clever. I laughed out loud. First line of the play.
Well, that's good, but I don't think it describes the play
No,
particularly.
it doesn't. Ed, did you, Dan?
Well, I'll tell you one thing, though. When I first read this script, the title kind of turned me off. I said, why are we limiting our audience? Why is this, that's so limited? Two Jews talking, you know, you're going to run out of people as soon as the theater parties are done. But that's what it is. It's the most descriptive.
Oh, yes, I love the title.
It is
actually.
what it is.
And our audience is remarkably diverse.
I know, it's amazing. One of the few places that we ever did it before we got to New York, the only place, as a matter of fact, that I ever did it, was a prior engagement they had in North Carolina, Western North Carolina. And I don't think there was a Jew in miles. But the humor is, you know, universal.
Universal, it is.
If it's not universal,
Dan, how did the play get to you? Did you choose it? Did you know Ed? How did it find its way to Peccadillo?
We've known Ed, the company's known Ed for about 10 years. We were in negotiation to do another Ed Weinberger play many years ago now, and we were going to do it with Ed Asner, whose health was not great at the time. And so ultimately that project never came to be. But then he brought me this script, and Peccadillo had produced, in March of 2020, we did the New York City premiere of Sideways, the adaptation by the author of the movie Sideways. And then just a year ago, that was closed by COVID in 2020. And then just a year ago, we did a great American play from the 30s called Mornings at 7. And that was closed by Omicron. And so I thought, I can't go through this a third time. We need to go in a totally different direction. And so this is actually not a Peccadillo production. This is a commercial production that I've been asked to direct. And it's been a great success. And so far, at least, COVID hasn't stopped us.
Hal and Bernie are ending this weekend. So be sure to get there.
Actually, Bernie ended last weekend. And the reason is this came up quite late. Didn't happen until the spring. Or
That's right.
till
Even early June.
June before they actually decided to do it. And by that time, both of us had prior commitments. So this is as long as I can be.
So you're playing it this weekend with another actor?
I'm playing it this weekend with our understudy, who actually played my son in The Rothschilds. Timmy Jerome. Who played, during the run, two different sons in The Rothschilds. And we've been father and son friends ever since.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
Is it a different show with him than it was?
I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be.
You've been rehearsing with him?
We did it for a few times.
Oh, yeah. Bernie
Yes.
actually tested positive for COVID
Yes.
sometime during this
Mhm.
run, so he had to drop out for a few days, and Tim stepped in.
So Tim's done it, we've done it. It'll be different timing. It'll
Yes.
be different
Yeah,
timing.
different time. Now, Hal, I have to ask you, you're honest about your age, right?
You can't lie about your age.
But this,
They
gentleman,
Google you.
this gentleman has pages and pages and pages of dialogue. Were you daunted when you saw the script?
Again, this was originally written for Ed Asner. And Ed, again, was not well, which is one of the reasons the two characters are stationary. And Ed would, actually, the minute he said a two-hander to me on the telephone, I said, I don't know, that's a little much. But we get help, so we've managed to surmount that problem. Let's put it that way.
When you have, your performance schedule is Thursday through Sunday.
Yes.
So
No, Friday.
Friday. So
Full
between the Sunday and the Friday performances, don't you have to then revisit the play before the Friday night?
No, we do a run through on Friday afternoon.
We brush up.
We brush up. Our Shakespeare.
I would see all those lines and I'd say, oh boy, I keep those in memory and not feel as if I'm struggling to retain them. And of course you don't, it just comes out.
And I think of all of those funny lines right then and there. You know, somebody wrote it. Don't forget that.
What's interesting about the play is it's two characters sitting, but we haven't told the audience that it's in two different time frames, which gives it a completely different spin.
Right.
It adds to the
The
meaning of it.
first time
act
frame is during the 40-year march through Sinai after the Red Sea parting. So it's two Jews on the march to the Promised Land. And the second, basically, well, not the same two Jews, but similar attitudes.
Yes,
Let's put it that way. Similar attitudes in current.
And both pieces take up big questions about the meaning of life and life after death and what's it all about.
Faith and versus skepticism and friendship.
Yes.
And friendship is a big.
Yes.
What makes people friends?
And a litany of Jewish complaints.
Ed knows all the jokes about Jewish complaints. Yeah.
I think all of us Jews do. So, something very easy to identify with. Dan, did you think that in today's current theater, the title of the show is at all provocative?
No. No. It's funny, I suppose given how volatile the culture is right now around issues of identity, maybe I should have thought more about that. But given the fact that there is no theater in the city without Jews, it just seemed like a natural fit to me.
Is an old Jewish audience coming to the show?
No, it's quite diverse.
It's diverse. I mean, yes, there is a heavy percentage of
Old-time Jewish theater.
old-time Jewish theater goers, bless every one of them. But then all the younger audiences, I mean, I've been surprised to see teenagers, even kids at the show. So I think the parents are bringing them.
Good, good.
Yeah.
But you hadn't thought of that question, or you're aware of sensitive issues that we're dealing with.
Maybe I should have.
You shouldn't. That might have stopped you, though.
Right.
I want to go back out to the beginning of your career. This distinguished gentleman who's had a long and wonderful career.
And it's longer, excuse me, and it's longer than 65 years. Because, well, I'll tell you why. That's my theatrical career. I was a professional musician for about 8-10 years before I ever set foot on the stage. So I became a member of Local 802, the Musicians Union, in 1946. You count how many years that is.
But you sort of started at the top. You were with Judy Holliday, and bells are ringing. Pretty good.
The prototypical understudy goes on. You'll go out and what did it go out and an understudy, come back a star. It took a few years to make a stardom, but
May I ask a question?
Yes.
What was it like working with Judy Holliday?
Yes.
the most generous actress I've ever worked with. And by that I mean, here's the picture. I joined the show on a Monday with a stage manager and a book, and he walked me through the staging, and on Saturday morning, the following Saturday morning, was first understudy rehearsal, all the understudies in the cast, and halfway through it, he said, "Keep rehearsing, kid, because you're on today." So I made my Broadway debut. I had never set foot on a Broadway stage. I didn't even have an agent. I lucked into the job. Never had rehearsed with Judy, nothing, and then there it was. I was on stage with Judy Holliday. Now, this is Judy Holliday. The song "Just in Time" comes from Bells Are Ringing, and it's done in one, which means there's a curtain right behind you. You only have that much stage. And we were on our way to a party, and there's some dialogue before the scene, and then I take her in my arms and dance with her and sing in her ear, "Just in time, I found her just in time." Well, I took her in my arms and I started dancing across the stage. Just in time, I found her just in time. Got about 4 bars in, and a hand on my back is twisting me. I finally realized I was singing "Into the Wings" because I was just dancing with her, and she twisted me so that she was upstaging herself. You would see her back, and I would be singing out the audience.
No microphones in those days.
No microphones in those days. I think there was some on the floor. I don't know. Not too many people have upstaged themselves for my benefit since.
That's not a Merman story.
And after a while, as I watched her, because I was just the standby, the understudy. I wasn't even a standby, I was the understudy. I was slated to go into the chorus. I never got into the chorus. They made me the standby. And I watched her on the stage, and she played half the show with her back to the audience. Because the center of the scene was somebody else. Not too many people I've worked with since then have that devotion to theater, devotion to the craft. What do you call it?
Generosity.
Generosity.
I believe, didn't she win the Tony Award in the same year of Julie Andrews and My Fair Lady? Any theater historian?
I can't. I don't know. Somebody Google it.
I think I'm right. I hope I'm right. Did you stay with the show for the?
Well, as I say, I became a standby. But then, again, I'm sure it was Judy Holliday, I acceded to the role. This was absolutely unheard of in 1959, 58.
56, 57.
Well, 57 is when I joined it, but I got the part in 58 or 59, I don't know what it was. It was unheard of for an understudy to accede to the role. And I guess Judy said, no, I want him, and that was it. And she did. That started my career, basically.
Now you're performing your show, and you give everything, every performance. She was a huge star. Did she give everything she had at every performance?
I never saw her darken, which I cannot say about every Broadway star. I've seen, unfortunately, major stars walk it.
She never did that.
Never.
Now that we have you here, we can't.
I saw
have
Gypsy, the original company of Gypsy. I raced home from the road to see it. I loved the score, and Merman walked it. Oh my God, what a disappointment.
She walked through it.
Walked. It was a matinee. Probably 7.
We can't have you here and not ask Hal Linden about Barney Miller, which I suppose is the signature role of your career. It was enormously successful. After all these years, it had many years run. Do you ask yourself, or are you asked in interviews, why did that show land the way that it did? Why did it connect to people in the way that it did?
It was described by Joe Lombaugh, police writer, policeman, as the most realistic cop show on television. Not only the best, but most realistic. And if you ask a detective, how many times in your life have you fired your weapon in anger? That is, not in the shooting range, but out in the street. So how many times have you fired your weapon? The highest number I ever got was 2. Mostly either 1 or never. And most cop shows that you see are adventure shows, and they're constantly running down an alley shooting their weapons. So that they're not an accurate representation of police work. This show was, because we had in the beginning we had a guy there to say, no, that's not the way it works, you do it this way. You know, we had a former policeman who would tell us to make it accurate. But I think the reason that it resonated, good writing. Good writing.
And good acting.
Good acting, there were a lot of shows with good actors. There were some tremendous actors out there doing, whatever they can. But if you don't have good writing, you're really struggling.
And didn't you tell me that you never had a laugh line?
I am honored, with my comedic timing and Church talking, 8 years without a punchline. 8 years without a punch. I was the straight man. You watched Barney Miller. I never. All I did was react. I mean, I reacted pretty good. Writing. We didn't. There was no ad-libbing. There was no, and we had Ronnie Carey, Steve Landisberg, real good stand-up comics who would come up with shtick. And we would say, hey, listen, we found this in rehearsal, and Danny Arnold, who was the producer, would go, would you go to this was his bottom line. He said, would you go to a police officer for help who behaved like that? we had to retain our credentials as functioning police officers, and that limited our behavior, and and kept us. So there was no ad-libbing. This was a written show by an incredible staff, and by the way, it was never canceled. It was retired. And it was retired because of the nature of television writers. Whenever you have a hit show, every show has about 5 or 6 writing, either a team or an individual sources. And as soon as you're a hit show, the number 2 guy, his agent is out there trying to get him to be the number 1 guy somewhere. And that's where the networks look. They look for the writers of successful TV shows. So you're constantly losing number 2 and number 3. So everybody moves up, and you've got to find 2 new guys or pairs at the end. By the time we were up to the 8th season, that we were, just ran out of writers. And the producer said, I am going to open up submissions from writers. He took scripts from college kids who wanted to be writers. He says, I'm going to spend the next month just reading scripts. And if I could find a staff for next year, we'll go on. And a month later, he came back and he said, guys, we don't want to just keep repeating ourselves. Everything I'm getting is just another version of what we already did. And he told the network, that's it, we're not going to do it anymore, that's enough.
Was that the right decision?
No, artistically or financially?
You've answered the question.
We were all disappointed because we were, if you're on 8 years, your salary's gotten to a nice point. And you'd love to do it another year.
Yeah. Can you tell us which medium you prefer? Do you prefer one, TV over theater?
I was just telling you, that is probably the most asked question. Television, theater, movies, or concerts. I've been doing concerts for, 15 years now. I used to say all of the above. And it was true.